Today's video, we're going to talk about Google search ads and specifically responsive search ads, which that's the only type of ad that we can run on Google search now for a brand new campaign. What the deal is with pinning headlines and basically why pinning the headlines will actually decrease the amount of ad impressions or the number of times your ad will show. Why that actually occurs with Google search ads now, and why you basically don't have to worry about that, because even though there's a short-term penalty in the number of times your ad shows, you're going to make more money pinning your headlines anyway, at least if you're taking advantage of good copywriting principles as it comes to making a good clickable Google search ad. And I'm going to give you what those main principles are that always gets a Google search ad to actually perform better in terms of click-through rate, which if you don't know already, click-through rate on an ad, when you increase that, that decreases the cost per click that you're paying for every click for the same exact click. So it automatically raises the ROI that you get on each click the higher the click-through rate gets. So more than anything else, you just want to increase your click-through rate, even if the amount of clicks you might get actually would be a little bit less. Obviously, there's a limit to that, and I'm going to talk about that, in terms of the price we pay to get a higher click-through rate, but then also get a little bit less ad impressions of the number of the time or the amount of times that you're eligible to have your ad show. And so with that, and of course, we always want click-through rates as well, because we can actually take a bigger overall bite of the market share of people that are searching for our product or service, which if you haven't really thought about this yet, but ultimately long term, you're going to hit a roadblock, and whether you're going to make $1 million a year or $2 million a year on Google search ads, a lot of it just comes down to, is your ad going to have a average click-through rate or above average, which allows you to take on twice as much of that market share available that comes through Google search. So anyway, with that said, I'll go over the deal with the pinning and what you should basically do to whether you should pin your headline, not pin your headline, how you should pin it, and that whole jazz. So you actually end up with the most money that you could make out of Google search ads. I will start off by saying, before diving into the content here, that I have already made a video about pinning, should you or should you not pin a headline on Google search ads. And that information basically still, for the most part, stands true. Basically, you should pin your headlines every time, no matter what. And I'm going to explain why here in a minute, because the way that we already know generates the most click-through rate on ads requires an ad pinning. But another thing came up recently where we've noticed it in our own PPC ad firm with our clients, and I've noticed it with software company Optimizer has put some data out, and noticed it from new clients coming in that have mentioned it, that when you pin headlines on an ad, the actual ad impressions you get on that ad will go down, which I understand why that is, but this is something that's came up, and I wanted to make another video specifically about that phenomena, since it's come up multiple times in my research and clients asking about this, so I could kind of put a frame of reference around this as to how much does this matter? Does this mean you shouldn't pin your headlines now? And that whole jazz. So anyway, there are a couple known truths about Google's new default ad type, which is the responsive search ads, where you have, where they're asking for like upwards of 15 headlines and 4 different descriptions. And with Google taking that information, because they think we're babies basically, and we can't figure out how to write our own ad, so they're going to give us, or should I say make us, if hypothetically, or try to make us give them 15 random headlines or pieces, or basically 15 random pieces of information, so that they can optimize our ads. And for the most part, I understand, as much as I'm speaking negatively here against Google, most people who run Google ads, I'd say 75% don't know they're asked from their hand as it comes to writing an effective ad or doing ad copy. And so with that said, Google's move to make you give them tons of different ways to run the ad and then them rotating out all the different types of ways to run the ad ultimately is a smart move due to how most people end up deciding to run their operation or how to run their search campaigns. So that overall Google's searchers, that people that use google.com to search for certain things, ultimately get the overall best experience they can on average. And ultimately, the people who don't really know anything about advertising can get an okay result, even though they don't know anything about it. And so, but for the 25% of us that actually do give a damn about our results and, are student of, advertising and want the best results and really just want to crush our competition into a fine dust, having giving Google 15 pieces of information and say pick the best one really is kind of stupid, because you should be able, through your research as a person who runs your business, talking to your sales department, reading reviews, find out what are the top 2 or 3 things at the very least most people care about, so that we could put that in the ad and not have to give Google and say, I don't know what people care about, putting that in the headline. And then also understanding, looking at competitor ads and kind of what seems to be trending the most and that kind of thing, how to structure it so it sounds halfway decent without needing 15 damn headlines for them to rotate through. So, or in other words, the short of it is, you want to write an ad with less headlines and tell Google what to run instead of giving them more headlines because you're unsure of what to run, and let Google eventually figure it out for themselves. Because ultimately, well, for one, if you're going to throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what sticks with 15 different headlines and you have no idea how to write a headline, the end result, even after the many months, if not years, of Google rotating out the headlines, is probably going to be a lackluster product than if you just did the proper research and studying and how to write a good headline and doing 2 or 3 headlines and then writing one ad that Google can run. Ultimately, the average person on the street could write 15 headlines. I could write with my 3 headlines that are all pinned into place, get better results than that person every time, basically. Just because I understand how to write these ads, which I'm going to tell you my structure here, how to get results that are going to beat the competition every time automatically. But ultimately, then, you don't, in other words, want to take advantage of all the different headlines that you can put in there and let Google rotate through them if you want the best results. Okay, so that out of the way. The 2 main things, as I was trying to get to here about these responsive search ads that you should know, that we found since they've came out with it, and just kind of 2 universal truths. This may change in the future. Certainly nothing set in stone, but I don't expect it to change. One of which is responsive search ads, i.e. the default search ad for new campaigns, get more impressions, i.e. the number of times that the ad is shown or eligible to be shown out of 100. Number of times you're eligible to be shown out of 100 would be like your impression, would be like a search impression share, by the way, to be specific. But basically, the number of times your ad's shown, if you're running the responsive search ads, is actually going to be greater on the responsive search ad than an expanded search ad, which was the older type of ad that Google allow us to run before. If you're going head on, head to head, basically, at least at first. So obviously, like I just got done saying, responsive search ads are the only ad type you can run in a new campaign. But if you, for instance, do what I do and set up, if you're going to try to replace a new or an old campaign with a new campaign and then kind of run the campaign side by side for a while, until the new campaign picks up enough data to have Google, recalculate the quality scores and know the new campaigns are better, or our new campaign is better, and then eventually prefer the new campaign, and then I can shut off the old campaign once that break-in period is over. If we were to run a responsive search ad and an expanded text ad within two different campaigns together, an old campaign and a new campaign like that, the new campaign with the responsive search ad in it would actually get shown more, at least initially, than the one with the campaign with the expanded text ads, because Google prefers the responsive search ads. They prefer it because, of course, some coder decided to code in with the system to prefer it. Whether or not that's better for each or an individual person or not, they just prefer it. So your new campaign will start sucking clicks strongly away from the campaign with the expanded text ads, even if the expanded search ad is already getting phenomenal performance. That new responsive search ad that's running with basically no data will start sucking away a major amount of clicks away from the expanded search ads if you were targeting the same keywords, okay? So in other words, Google loves the responsive search ads, and I think one day expanded text ads will be, axed completely, and we'll have to just turn all the expanded text ads into responsive display ads. But anyway, at least from that point, they at least prefer the responded text ads at first. Eventually, if all the headlines you give Google for that responsive text ad is bad, eventually they'll prefer the expanded search ads, or expanded search ad, should I say, if the responsive search ad is kicking the ass of the responsive text ad click-through rate, and Google's tried all the variations they can with that responsive search ad, and no, there's no variations that will work better than the expanded text ad. That's why I say at first, because eventually, even if Google prefers responsive display ads or responsive search ads at first, if the ad doesn't actually physically do better after all possible variations have been tried of the different headlines and the different positions and all that, it'll still prefer the expanded text ad, okay? So that's one major thing to know about responsive search ads. The second here, which is what this video is mainly about, is the pinning the headlines on the responsive search ads will reduce the number of times the ad will show, at least at first, and it'll show a poor ad strength score pinning the headlines as well. My previous video about responsive search ads and pinning headlines on them was primarily about exactly that, about how people, ask, basically if you pin the headline on, or even just one headline, you pin a headline on your ad from the ad editing menu on your account, you'll see the ad strength score that's there that shows up in that ad menu in the editing menu. It'll go from like okay to poor just because you pinned one headline, and the more headlines you pin, the more it goes down. And I mentioned on that last video about that you shouldn't give a shit about what the ad strength score is. That ad strength score has zero to do with how much money you're going to make. It's a tool that is very convenient for Google to get you to not pin your headlines so that Google can do all the testing, because the average person doesn't know how to write a good headline. So therefore, as a whole, it's better for Google's users and Google to not have anybody pin their headlines, so Google's algorithm can figure out the proper headlines that'll work for each person, except for, of course, the situations where you actually know how to write a headline and write an ad. And in that case, not pinning the headlines actually isn't good for you, but they have to apply a one-size-fit-all solution for all advertisers, because they don't know if know how to write an ad or not. And they won't know until they test your ad, of course, which is why your ad performance is always bad before it's good if you know how to write good ads. But if you pin your headlines, like I'm going to tell you to do in a minute, in a specific way that always gets better results with your ads if you do it my way with your ad copywriting, that if you pin your headlines, your ad strength score will automatically always go down, but that you don't have to worry about the ad strength score. The other thing here, as I mentioned, there's two parts to what I mentioned here actually. Pinning your headlines, initially, the amount of ad impressions you will get from that ad is going to be less than if you did not pin any headlines. That's what the major focus of what I made this video for itself and wanted to make this video about, because people have seen that and they ask me about it. Well, Corey, I've noticed before, if we don't pin the headlines, they actually get shown more. And that is absolutely correct. at least temporarily, until Google, figures out that the ad is not going to perform very well. And so in other words, if we were to put two ads that were in one ad group, we put two ads, one ad that has some headlines pinned, one ad without any headlines pinned. The one without any headlines pinned would initially get more impressions, right? But the ad that has the headlines pinned will eventually get more impressions than the one that's not pinned, of course, because assuming that you know how to write the ad, because the one that has the headlines pinned, it's going to figure out sooner how to run that ad better, and eventually it'll get more impressions than the one that's not pinned. Because in order to test 15 headlines in every possible combination, that's going to take a while. So initially, the one that's not, the ad that doesn't have any pinning, there'll be more impressions, as we noticed. And then assuming you've written the ad right and you got the headlines pinned, and it's just a good ad, eventually you'll get more impressions with that. But then eventually after that, the one that doesn't have the headlines pinned, is if it has the same exact headlines as the other ad, eventually both ads will get about the same amount of impressions, because the one that doesn't have headlines pinned will eventually figure out what is the best headline configuration. So then they'll be negligible. So initially you'll start out with more impressions, but the initial extra impressions you'll get from the ad not having the headlines pinned won't make up for the lack in click-through rate you will get from having the ad, in all these really weird random configurations that aren't ideal, whereas as a good copywriter, or just by having seen this video and seeing what works for pinning headlines every time, like I mentioned here, there's a magic formula I got for you here. You'll end up with more clicks and therefore more profit just going ahead and pinning the headlines, even though it'll get less impressions. Your click-through rate will be higher, and that increase in click-through rate will make up for the lack of impressions early on that you won't get by having a few of the headlines pinned. Okay, so if you get my point, I'll go into this a little bit further here to reinforce that point. If you actually know how to make an ad, pinning headlines will initially get your ad shown less as a penalty, as Google, or not as a direct penalty. Google's not trying to really beat us up for not pinning the headlines. Not directly, as I mentioned before, Google wants to, for most advertisers, actually not pinning the headlines would be beneficial to them because they don't know how to write an ad. And because most people don't know how to write an ad, everybody gets treatment as if they were a poor ad writer. But pinning your headlines will initially get your ad shown less as a penalty as Google starts running other competitors' ads who don't have their ads headlines pinned. So their algorithm that decides if your ad shows or your competitor ad shows, if you pin your headlines on your ad and your competition has no pinned headlines and everything else is all equal, they're going to show your competition's ad over yours because their algorithm prefers a headline or an ad without the headlines pinned, at least until they figure out that ad, of course, is terrible. So if your competition has an ad with no pinned headlines and been running it for a year and know that all of the possible combinations don't work very good, then your ad with the pinned headlines could work about as good as the competition's that doesn't have their headlines pinned. Just as one possible scenario or outcome as to what you could experience. But anyway, generally speaking, you don't have your headline. If you have your headlines pinned and you get less impressions because Google starts promoting another person's ad that decided to not have their headlines pinned, and their ad serving algorithm prefers unpinned headlines or ads with unpinned headlines, because your ad has pinned headlines, it'll experience less impressions because Google prefers the ads without pinned headlines. But you won't get as many clicks even though your ad's being shown more, because having your headlines pinned in a way that always works and a structure that always works will have such a higher click-through rate than if you had no headlines pinned and you let Google rotate through all the possible headlines. You're actually going to end up with more clicks just pinning the headlines anyway, basically. So whereas your ad, you'll get less impressions on your ad, the click-through rate you get will be so much higher than if you left your headlines unpinned, that the little bit of less impressions you're going to get less impressions, not a huge amount, but a decent amount less. Because you're going to get 2 or 3 times the click-through rate on your ad by having your headlines pinned, it totally makes up for and then some, getting shown a little bit less by having such a higher or such more click-through rate on your ad, if that makes sense. So that's the main point I'm trying to make today in this video and to get across to you, i.e. you still want to pin your headlines, at least if you're doing it the way that I'm recommending here, because it'll make up for any loss in impressions you're going to get by having those headlines pinned. All right? So with that said, I have here now getting to the magical portion of this video where I tell you exactly what always is going to get you a higher click-through rate on your ads. I have an example of how to write the headlines for a local service. It could be a local product seller or a national company on what generally always gets you the results. We'll just say 100% of the time will get you a higher click-through rate, which gets you higher amount of potential sales, like I said, because more of the market's coming to you, and you're going to get a higher ROI because your quality score is going to come up from having a higher click-through rate. And the typical, average click-through rate people are getting with their search ads, while 3 to 5%, follow my system here, you can get 7 to 20%. So you're going to double to triple your click-through rate by just following this simple little method here that we always 100% of the time use on our clients' campaigns to get them guaranteed results, in which we can basically charge them for getting them such and such results up front, and then them paying us based upon the sales that they're getting after the fact. So, and that's part of the reason why we can offer at our firm a guaranteed service where other PPC firms can't. We understand what other competition won't do, what generally works, and what the user wants, which goes hand in hand. And then when we execute on that, we know there'll always be a predictable result out of doing something that we know works and the competition either is ignorant of or is not willing to do. And we know of quite a few of those techniques, of which we share everything that I know of on this channel, which is why you want to subscribe. But the main thing that we always also do as a part of that, those things that other people aren't willing to do and which always work, therefore are going to get you a nice sizable chunk of extra profit from your campaigns, is the headline pinning. Specifically, when we're talking about a local company, in case you're doing that, what you want to do is you got to follow, first of all, something that I didn't invent, SKAG or SKAG method, where you take all your keywords, and to do this, you can't just pick out 10 or 20 keywords. You got to physically go out there and really find all possible combinations of your keywords. So if you offer a plumbing service, there's going to be like 800 versions of the ways that people type in looking for a plumbing service, or maybe even 1,500 for plumbing or something in that space. To refresh my memory, it's on that plumbing space for sure over 1,000. But anyway, there's, just for simplicity's sake, we'll say 1,000, an even 1,000. There's 1,000 different ways that somebody can look for a plumbing service. Plumbing services, plumbing companies, plumbing near me, plumbing services companies near me, and there's different permutations of the ways people search for this. And what you go out there and do is you go out there and use SpyFu or SEMrush, Google Keyword Tool. You use and other resources to compile all these different variations you can find of keywords out there. And then once you find all your keywords like that, you mix and match using what I call a permutation generator, which you can actually Google search permutation generator, put all your keywords in there, because ultimately you'll find in your keyword research, you'll find best plumbing service, and then you'll find a keyword plumbing service, and then you'll find a keyword plumbing company. And so what you do is you take your best from your first keyword, and then you throw it on there as a combination to plumbing company and find a whole nother keyword, best plumbing company. Whereas before you just had best plumbing service and then plumbing company. Now you have another keyword that you derive by mixing and matching the keywords, best plumbing company. Okay? So anyway, with that said, you end up with 1,000 keywords of all the main variations of ways somebody can search for your company there. And it's not as hard as what you think. If you don't know how to do it, just contact me and I'll do it for you for a very, very minimal, if not no cost, as a way to get acquainted with your company. But you've come up with the actual list of different searches like that using initial keyword research methods and then a permutation generator that you can find online using online, just typing into Google online permutation generator, find all possible variants of all the keywords you found in combination, get that list, and then make a custom, within your campaign, make a custom ad group for every single keyword. But not only that, since we're talking about local businesses here, if you're targeting, let's say, all of the Houston metro market, for example, you're going to go and type into Google cities within Houston metro by population into Google. And then you're going to find a list of all the cities within the Houston metro area by population, just like what I mentioned. And basically within that, every city over 50K in population, you're going to have a separate campaign just for that city. And then everything under 50K in population, you're going to have a campaign for those, which are just going to have the name of the county. Or if there's several counties in Houston metro area, then you have what I call a catch-all campaign for each county as well. And the reason for this is ultimately it allows you to, or it puts you in position, so if somebody's looking for a service not in, they're in the Houston metro area, but they're in an area, and I don't even remember off the top of my head, different markets within that, or cities within the Houston metro market. We'll just say the name of the city within the Houston metro market is called Denison. If the city name is Denison, that's one of those cities within Houston metro that's over 50K of population. We can have it so that we know where that person's from when they're searching, so that we can ultimately put the name of that person's city in the ad, which gets us massively more click-through rate on our ad than we would have got otherwise just putting Houston in there, because that tells the user right away that we serve their market. There's 3 things that people need to know to decide if they're going to click on your ad or somebody else's ad. Can you do it? Number 1. Number 2, do you cover my area? And this is for a local business. Number 3, can I trust you? So anyway, ultimately, I mentioned you're going to find all those keywords, and you're going to have just one keyword per ad group, which puts you in position to have a custom ad for every single keyword. And along with that, you're going to have one campaign for each of the cities within the general market or territory that you're covering. Okay? Assuming that you're going to the customer. If the customer comes into your shop itself, you wouldn't necessarily have a campaign for each city because you don't need that. All right? But we'll say we're a plumber or home service company or whatever. Ultimately, then, you have a campaign for each city within the general service area that you cover. And within each campaign, you have a list of keywords that's the same keywords in each campaign. The keywords are just a mirror copy of every other campaign. Every city's campaign has the same keywords, and each keyword has its own ad group, which means it has its own ad. Here is the formula that will mop the floor with all the competition in your area every time. Your keyword, because we know what they typed in itself, because we have one keyword per ad group, you could put the keyword right in the headline, the first headline. So what I'll do that works the best out of everything that I've tested by far, and have tested millions and millions of dollars of ad spend for local service companies. You put the keyword in the headline, and then the name of the city. So if we're talking about plumbing services, you're going to type in, the headline's going to read plumbing services in Denison. Since if the person's in Denison, if they're in a different city, it's going to say a different city. So whatever the keyword is what is in the headline, and then the city. So that going back to what I said before about the person needing to know 3 things in order to decide to click on your ad or somebody else's, they need to know, can you do it? Can you do what they came for? Do you cover my area? Can I trust you? The two of the three of the things they need to know is they know right up just by looking at the headline on your ad. And when they have 4 ads to look at to decide whose ad to click on, yours is by far the easiest choice. And then you automatically win then. So, and if you can't fit, because there's only 30 characters in a headline, if you can't fit the keyword in city like that, then I'll just go, specifically I'll have the keyword in the first headline, and then the second headline I'll have covering all of, and then the city. So that they'll still see the keyword in the first headline and then the second headline, which they almost always see. Not always do they see the third headline, but they always see the second headline based upon, device and so on, covering all of city. So it'll say, like, if the keyword was plumbing services, they'll see plumbing services in the headline, and then it'll say on the second headline covering all of Denison if they're in Denison and so forth. So that they always get those two most key critical pieces of information up front every time. And it sounds like a ridiculous load of bullshit to have exactly what they searched for in the ad, but I'm telling you, I've made tens of millions of dollars for clients in terms of sales off of this method. We use it every single time. I shouldn't even be telling you guys this method because it's such an easy way to make money. I shouldn't be telling you, but I am here telling you anyway, so you can use it or not use it. And you may say it's too much work, and fine, and it's all the money's for us then if we're in your market competing against you. But that's what you do for the first and second headline, okay? If you could fit everything in the first headline, putting the keyword and then in city, so instead of typing in, by the way, plumbing services, if they typed in broken toilet repair, then the headline reads broken toilet repair in, and then the city name. And whether you can fit all of that in one headline or two, the third headline focuses on the third other main point they need to know, which is, can I trust you? So broken toilet repair in Denison, and then underneath that, A+ BBB rated since 2001. Or you could say A+ BBB serving since 2001, or A+ BBB 19 plus years in biz. So the idea here is that we found nothing. This is multi-million-dollar advice I'm giving to you here, because we've tested all these different ways to make the ad better for a local service company, for pool builders and foundation repair companies and all this. So the easiest thing to convey trust that everybody recognizes without having to think very hard is BBB, because everybody knows that, and everybody knows what A+ BBB is, and it's something you can say in a small amount of text or characters. And then saying how long you've been in business is a second to that, because everybody knows that without having to think as well. And if you've been in business for 20 years, I obviously know that I can trust you. I already know that you're not a fly-by-night company. So anyway, that's another free piece of advice. Now, in what I told you about this last part about A+ BBB since 2000, serving since 2001 or whatever. Serving 2001 isn't actually the best way to say that, by the way. But I'm just giving you a general ballpark of what works. Saying that something about BBB and saying something about how long you've been in business is the way to go. And as a side, covering all of, then insert city for the second headline. If you can only fit in and then the name of the city, that's what you do. So these are all just general basic guidelines. You'll have to based upon the length of the keyword and the length of the city name and how long you've been in business, you may decide to tweak this a little bit, but this is the general formula that's money. It's money right here. This is what you do for your local ad. And as for the last part about, the trust part, where you're saying like the A+ BBB rating and in biz since 2001 or whatever, that's not relevant to what we're talking about today about the ad pinning or the headline pinning itself, because this A+ BBB, sometimes we'll just put that in the description, given that the third headline's not normally seen, or we'll put it in the third headline and put it in the description. And but the important thing is, in terms of pinning the headlines, you always want to pin the first headline, keyword in city, or if you're doing keyword only in the first headline, and then having, because the keyword is too long, and having to put covering all of and then city name in the second headline, you're going to pin the first headline and the second headline, because you're not going to beat having the keyword in the city in the first and second headline, or just the first headline, no matter what else you do. That's going to always win. So you pin those, and that's going to get you the maximum click-through rate you can. And that maximum click-through rate is going to double to triple your click-through rate of what a normal average 3 to 5% click-through rate everybody else is going to get. And whatever short-term dock and impressions you're going to get from having the first and second headline pinned is going to well make up for any reduction in the impressions. By the way, the amount of impressions you're going to lose by having the headline pinned, it's going to be less than double. It varies by market. I haven't done an extensive study on this, but it certainly significantly is less. To give you a general idea, since I never went ahead and measured this sufficiently enough, because we always pin the headline, so it's tough for us to know for sure. We kind of are going on, a little bit of what our clients say and looking at our clients' accounts before we take them over. It appears to be about 20 to 50% less impressions. Enough for Google to, and makes sense why Google is doing this, because if Google knows that they have to do some testing on their end to find the best headline, they have to be able to prioritize the responsive display ads without the headlines pinned. Otherwise, it's never going to figure out which headline is the best for the client. So anyway, losing 20 to 50% in impressions when you're gaining 2 to 3x in click-through rate, it's a no-brainer basically. But anyway, this, like I said, the last part where you're talking about like the trust stuff, A+ BBB since 2001. Generally speaking, you could potentially pin that here. Sometimes we pin that on the third headline, sometimes we don't. Sometimes instead of pinning that A+ BBB, we'll test some other stuff and let Google actually rotate through it. But what we do know is we can't beat putting the keyword and the person's city name, or if they're in a small town, the county name in the first and second headline, or just the first headline, because that always wins, if you get my point. Okay? So anyway, that's the formula that always will work. In a local market, doing like something where you're going to the person's house, or if they're coming to you, the very least, instead of like really narrowing down to the city name specifically, like the smaller cities within the metro area that you serve, by the way, you're going to say keyword in and then the name of the overall metro area. Like, so Houston or Denver, you're not going to say the city within Denver. So they at least know that your store is local within that metro market and they can get to it, just as a side. But anyway, I won't talk too much more about this strategy. As far as on a national basis, you always want to pin headlines, because going for the same things that get things to work well in a local market, i.e. putting the keyword in the headline so they know right away when they type in they're looking for something specific and they see your ad that regurgitates back to them what you said, that always works. It always works in a national context as well. And as a side note, you don't want to use dynamic keyword insertion in your headline. You want to handwrite your ads. Yes, it's a pain in the ass to write the ads, but it's going to work better. And a lot of times the keyword won't fit the headline, so you're going to have to compromise. And if it's broken toilet repair service is what the keyword is, you might have to just have broken toilet repair. But you can't, the software or the dynamic keyword insertion tool that Google has isn't very good at making the compromises about, well, here we should shorten it to this, or we should like use this in replacement or whatever. A human is the best way to do that. And also because you don't want whatever's displayed to the user to look like it was made by a robot, because if it does, you're going to kill any benefit you would have got from it in the first place. So you handwrite each one of these ads, and yes, you'll have to make, if you have 1,000 keywords, 1,000 ads, but the results are double to triple the click-through rate consistently across the board. So you'll easily make, between the cost per click coming down because the click-through rates are higher, and the amount of more clicks you're going to get out of your market, out of the available clicks you can get that are profitable, way more of them, you're going to make 3 to 5 times as much money. So for the amount of work it takes, that's going to be, you're going to be working for $1,000 an hour, essentially, long term. So anyway, on a national context, you're going to each keyword, and you might end up with thousands of keywords to do this, which you may want to break this up into sections. Just do a campaign for a certain amount of keywords and then get the results from that, and then do the next set of keywords or whatever. But either way, you want to, don't compromise. Take the keyword, put it in the headline, and make sure the first headline's pinned so that the keyword, or however you restructured the keyword, you want to be able to say what they typed in or a close variation of it, because that's always what's going to get the highest click-through rate. And the click-through rates are going to be 2 or 3 times as high as usual, which makes up for that 20 to 50% reduction in impressions you're going to get by having the headlines pinned initially. So normally you'll have, in a national context for a national service or product that you're trying to sell, the keyword will be in the first headline. The second headline is that, for us, that's almost always going to work the best, is saying what the differentiator is. 30-year warranty, free shipping, if that's, if that actually is truly a differentiator in your market. Or saying, built to last, holds 275 pounds weight, or whatever it is. You say because ultimately you got to think from the consumer's perspective. What would be the thing you would want to see? After seeing that, oh yes, you offer the exact model and make and type, all that I'm looking for, of whatever product I'm looking for or service, I want to know, why is it that I should hire you or buy from you? What's the specific reason? Why you're different than all these other people that are showing up on Google? And in some instances, if you have something that truly is like a commodity, like a broom, people don't really give a shit about if your broom can sweep twice as fast as another broom. Then instead of a differentiator, by the way, we'll put the price. So if they're looking for a cheap broom, and they type that into Google, then the first headline says cheap broom, and then the second headline has the price, $19.95. Or if they were looking for a yellow broom, keyword, the first headline then says yellow broom, and then the price on the second headline, $19.95. But the second headline with the differentiator or the price, depending on which way you go, which 95% of you guys are going to be focusing on the differentiator, and then if you have a commodity product like printer, toner, or something like that, you have the price. The differentiator or price in that second headline doesn't have to be penned, because, and with that, we'll write a few of them. We won't really sometimes know what the best, if we have several differentiators, which one's going to pull the best. So then we'll let Google do what it wants to do, rotate out the second headline for us. Whereas the first headline, putting in the keyword of what they search for, is going to be able to be, we already know ahead of time that beats everything else. Therefore, we don't want to let Google test what we already know works already. We want that increase in click-through rate we can get from having that keyword in the headline or a close variation of that keyword right away without any compromise, without having to wait 6 months for Google to eventually figure it out on their own, even though that they're going to show the ad a little bit less, 20, 30, 40, 50% less initially, because we didn't give them the ability to figure out what we already knew, essentially, which is that keyword in the headline is what always works. So anyway, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to get out there today. In summary, the amount of ad impressions you will get will be less if you do penning of your headlines. But if you know what to say in the first headline or second headline, which I gave you here, then you're going to make up by far for that loss in impressions, ad impressions you're going to get by having the headlines penned, but by the increase in click-through rate you're going to get by having, premium things pinned. That always gets good results for us and for you. So, and ultimately, the ad strength score doesn't mean dog shit. It really, hate to, I don't want Google to come after me here, but what matters, still to Google, what matters is the user that searches gets what they want. And if you know something that's going to work better without them testing it, of course they want to run that. They just have this one-size-fits-all solution that doesn't work for somebody who's actually knowing what to do when it comes to writing an ad. So don't worry about the ad strength score as well. And but with that, I'll wrap it up. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. As I mentioned on this video today, I have a PPC firm that we have here where we're managing 3, 4 dozen, 5 dozen clients' accounts at any given time. And I'm strategizing personally the strategy for all those accounts. We have a team of people that help us do the work and the strategies I know work here. But effectively, I'm the one strategizing everything. And with that, I learn a whole ton about what works and what doesn't work on an ongoing basis. And with that, I give it to you for free on this channel to know exactly what works or what doesn't work. And that's unlike basically everything else you're going to find on YouTube as far as PPC advice. All the rest of the advice comes from people either not managing shit or they run a firm, but they aren't in the day-to-day operations. I'm actually giving you raw advice of where millions of dollars of ad spend is being overlooked. And we're testing things on an ongoing basis to tell you exactly what to do and what not to do without having to waste all of that same time and money to figure it out for yourself. So as far as actual actionable advice, we're giving it to you here. No just theories and opinions, actual information about what to go out and do to make money. So you should subscribe. I also, and by the way with that, if you like this video, I'd also appreciate it if you would give it a like so we can get the algorithm, tickle the algorithm a little bit so we can get this video out there to some new people that will also benefit from seeing it. Hopefully not your competitors. And then beyond that, I have a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog where we have step-by-step advice about how to set up PPC campaigns that always win, similar to like what I was talking about here today. It's written by myself. It's more detailed advice on how to actually set up campaigns that work, whereas on this channel we give you high-level information. That can be great supplementary advice on how to actually win at PPC and how to set up campaign strategies on a more individualized step-by-step basis. So I just want to let you be aware of that as well. And if you have any questions about anything that I covered here today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. If you have any general questions about PPC, you can reach me by leaving a comment. I'll get back to you and try to answer your question as well. As a final note, I wanted to, before I let you go, let you know that I have a brand new program here that I came up with at our PPC agency. Whereas we know some people don't want full-on PPC services. They want to manage their own campaigns or whatnot, or just limit their expenses to some degree. We have a program here where if you're in a market that we've already gotten results in and you're in a different geographic market that would not compete with our clients, you can use the same exact campaign templates we use to build up millions of dollars of results for that client in that same market for your own company and give you the actual campaign templates that you can copy and paste into your account to get similar results in your own geographic market. And so it's a great way to just hurdle over all the basic work that you got to do to be able to get rich with PPC just because we've already did the work for you. And it's obviously at a very decent price. We can do that because ultimately all we're doing is giving you the templates. And so we give you campaign templates, landing page templates with that, and we can tell you what your results are going to be before you even use that campaign for your own market. So for all practical purposes, you could have something that could make you several $1 million a year and have it all running for you within 3 months of kicking it on and getting it started for your company, just because you got the ironclad thing that we already know works for that market. And then also, the real reason we started this program up, and I'm notifying you guys of it, is because there's certain people that are in businesses that they're struggling with, and if you want to start a brand new business, all you would have to do is reach out to us and say, hey, what campaigns are you getting results in? I want to see what results you can get in this market because I'd like to start a business in this market. Take our campaign, go set up a site, potentially outsource all the work to somebody else or drop ship to somebody else and have a business ready to go like that you already know the results you're going to get ahead of time. We've had clients who did that where, ultimately, again, this is, we have a client in geographic market A, San Francisco, you're in Denver, you want to start up a similar foundation repair company, put up a site, we'll set you up with the campaign templates that got, where we're generating $10 million a year in foundation repair service work in San Francisco. That campaign, you outsource all the work to a local provider in Denver. You keep 5% of the total gross revenue for yourself. You have a business ready to go, and you basically almost have a passive income business. And your value to the market is having that really, really good ironclad PPC campaign that crushes it in another market working for you in your market. And it works good enough where all you have to do is just maybe mark up the price of the service a little bit from who you're outsourcing the work to, and it's a great business that you can run. We're half tempted to not do it ourselves. I try to limit myself to not get distracted with all this other stuff, but I certainly could just set up a campaign, outsource work in other markets. Or we have also product campaigns where companies A is selling products in one geographic market. You could sell those same products in another geographic market, whether it's a different country or whatnot, and get similar results in that other market. I mean, and get the products from China just like that same company is doing in that other market, whether that's printer toner or whatever. The main selling point, or the main thing that makes the business work, is having the PPC campaign, because everybody can get those same products. Anyway, I said enough about that program. If you're interested, let us know. I'll let you know what markets we have results in and the sales results you can get in those markets roughly if you're interested. And of course, letting you know if we have results in your current market already, which obviously is much easier than building up results for yourself if you can go that route. But I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next video where we have another great PPC strategy for you to make a little bit more money with your Google ads, Facebook ads, and so forth. See you then.